Hello, and welcome to the Edition podcast. I'm Charlotte Henry. A big thank you for MacPaw and their product Clean My Mac for supporting the show. I'll be telling you more about them later on. But I want to welcome Robb Dunewood back to the Edition podcast. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Hey, it's good to see you, Charlotte. How you been?
All the better for seeing you. Now, you do loads of different shows. I know you from Tom Merritt and DTNS, but you've done all sorts of, just to remind the people where all the different places they can find you, first of all.
So the main place is Daily Tech News Show. I am one of the hosts over there, along with there's a whole crew. There's dozens of folks at Daily Tech News Show, but one of the main hosts, Tom Merritt, Sarah Lane, myself are the primary hosts, and then we've got a bunch of contributors and so on and so forth for various other shows. All things Daily Tech News Show, you're going to find me. And then I do a couple things on my own. If you were to just go to robbdunewood.com, you'll see all the stuff that I do.
Yeah, and we'll have all of that in the show notes. I refer to Rob as my blogging therapist. When I have stress about the world of digital media, I email Rob and he makes me feel better about the world and he sets me straight. So that's what we're going to do now for the people. You've been on before and we kind of talked about it. So I wanted to reassess where we are in the world, particularly of blogging, what that word even means in 2026 and where we are now. Because you kind of came to prominence as the bloggerpreneur. So just tell me about that and then we'll get into where we are now.
It's kind of crazy because I still have the domain name. I still use the email at bloggerpreneur. And I've probably had that since I think it was like 2001, 2002 is when I registered that domain name. And the world of blogging has changed. I used to be that guy. It was all about WordPress when WordPress came about and building websites where I would put my thoughts out into the world and do all the search engine optimization and ultimately try to get people to go and look at my content. Now, back in the day, I was talking about phones, primarily Blackberries and stuff like that. So I had a blog that was, called Remarkable. And I had myself and other folks that, worked with me. We created content around BlackBerry devices and just what was going on in BlackBerry news. So I was always that content, that written content kind of guy on the web. But even though I still have that moniker bloggerpreneur, that is probably the least amount of content that I create is actually written content that goes out into the world on a website in the same fashion as as a blog, what most people think of blogs. I still do an incredible large amount of writing. Usually now that stuff is going to a newsletter where, because I've just decided that I could care less about trying to do search engine optimization for the web ever again. So it has become significantly less difficult to just write what I want to write. And people who are interested in what I have to say, they can just subscribe and get it whenever I push something out. So it's a little different than the old weblog, the old blog that we would have been talking about 15 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to bloggerpreneur.com, it is still there. It still has the moniker, how to start a blog and monetize it. You're still there.
It's still there, but there's nothing there. It's like I actually have taken all. Page. Yeah, it's just just that page is just like the logo that I came up with years and years and years ago, and I don't write there any longer. So like now the interesting thing is that most people are going to think of me as a podcaster and starting to get into doing YouTube content. I write all of that. So what ends up happening is that, I don't mind the writing at all. I just mind to try, it was so difficult to try to get people to find your content with all the stuff you had to do with search engine optimization and just trying to be in front of algorithms. I felt like I was writing for an algorithm. And what I found that was a lot easier to do is that once I have built up a little bit of a following and people have started to say, I kind of like how Rob thinks. I wonder if he has anything else. Oh, here's a newsletter. You can go check this out. And read about what I've got to say there. And a lot of times it is stuff that I'm talking about in the various podcasts and the various vlogs that I do. It's just more of it in a newsletter type format. Now, many of these places where I would write a newsletter, they have a website where you could go and you could look at all the things that are there chronologically if you chose to do it like you would a blog. But I don't even think of it in the same way. It's just when I got something to say, I put it in a newsletter, hit send, and people get it or people don't. And, we kind of go from there.
A lot of people would argue that newsletters are the blogging of now. Like a lot of what people put into newsletters, they would have previously put on a WordPress site, right? Is that
Mhm.
fair, do you think? Or do you
Well,
think it's changed the dynamic?
I think absolutely the case for some folks. You know, now a lot of people think of newsletters, they're thinking more of email lists. They're thinking of, you just got my email and then whenever you want to market to me, you can send me stuff. But no, newsletters are in the same way that there was a blog. You can put the information into the newsletter and you can just write the newsletter for the content and not have to worry about search engine optimization. I know people still do it and are still very successful doing it. For me, it's just something that was a game for me that I didn't want to play. So when I stopped playing the game, the reach on the content that I was writing just less and less and less. And what the newsletter did was I did not have to play that search engine optimization game to get people to find my content. They found me however they found me. And if they wanted to sign up to a newsletter to get more, they just would. And then the information is pushed to them versus them having to go and search for something and find it. So the numbers are significantly less compared to when I was writing about BlackBerry and people were interested in that and they would search for this, not knowing that I wrote something and it would just come up. But the satisfaction for me to just be able to write without having to think about how do I game an algorithm to get it in front of massive people, I tend to like the newsletter a little bit more. So if I'm, for me, if I'm going to try to game an algorithm, it'll be the YouTube one because I like to put my ugly mug in front of a camera and talk to people directly.
Listen, you're looking dapper for me and I appreciate it. See, I was going to bring this point though, because you're still playing the algorithm game ultimately, aren't you?
In a different way and in a way that I don't mind so much. I think part of it is that with blogging, I've been doing it for so long. I mean, I was
doing it best part of 2 decades?
It's over 20 years. Well over 20. I've been podcasting for almost 20 years. I was blogging for 6-7 years before I started podcasting. I didn't know what to call it, but I had online journal stuff going back to the 90s. So literally it's like, right after I got out of grad school is when I started putting content on the internet, stuff that I would write. And so I kind of grew into, okay, if you write it this way, Google's going to recognize you. If you get these links, Google's going to recognize you. Right. And then that became a game because ultimately Google's trying to make money. So, and I was too. So you try to write for the algorithm and I didn't enjoy that at all. When I create content now from a podcast standpoint, there is no algorithm for podcasting specifically. And for YouTube, there is one. Yep. But I like the content creation of creating YouTube content so much more than I liked trying to write for an algorithm. The content that I'm creating, and there's a few things that you do to try to get the algorithm to recognize you. But it's like, here's something that I'm interested in. I'm going to put it out there. And I think what I have now is maybe a bit of an economy of scale is that I got a lot of people who follow. I have a lot of people who look at Daily Tech News Show. I have a lot of folks who listen to the Tech John. So, and then, other shows that I do. So it's easier for me to say, hey, go check this newsletter out. Sometimes I don't even call it a newsletter. It's like, hey, go here and check this out. It might be a membership community or something like that. And I just enjoy that two-way interaction with having a conversation with my audience around the content that I've created. So I'm really moving into the phase of where I don't call things blogs. I don't call things, newsletters. People know what they are. So I still say the name. Sure. Podcasts, people know what they are. So I still say the name. I'm just a content creator and all the different ways you can get the content is just distribution as far as I'm concerned.
But that's so interesting because when we think of content creator, we think of 18 to 25-year-old making vertical video on Instagram and TikTok, right?
I think that if you say influencer, that's might be. So I make a distinction. You can be a content creator and not influence anyone, and you can influence a lot of people and not technically be, a content creator in the way that a lot of folks look at it. I'm a bit older than you, Charlotte, and what I am seeing is that there are a lot of folks that have been, that are in my cohort of age. I am right smack dab in the middle of Gen X. But I've been noticing that there are some younger baby boomers all the way through Gen X to some even older millennials. And what they've started to do is like, I have an enormous amount of experience in this thing. And I really like this thing that I'm doing. So I'd like to take this thing that I've got experience in and talk about it to people who are interested in the thing that I'm interested in. So I think that there is, I don't want to call it a shift. I think there's just another thing that is happening is that you're starting to see folks who are, maybe, maybe not as much gray in the beard as I have, but they've been around for a while and they have expertise in something and are now sharing that expertise, whether it be through a newsletter or a blog, whether it be on a podcast as audio only, whether it be on a talking head podcast like you and I are doing, whether it be audio or video first content like a straight YouTube vlog or something like that, or a YouTube show. I think that there are a lot of folks who have been around for a while and have that experience that are starting to look at content in a different way. So in this, maybe I'm preaching to the choir because I'm literally in the middle of that cohort. I'm in the middle of the generation that's in the middle of it. But I see a lot of folks who look like me who are just getting into content creation for the first time. And what's different is that they're not necessarily trying to influence people, and, they're not doing the TikTok dance videos and stuff like that. What they're doing is that I have expertise in this thing, and I like to talk about the thing I have expertise in. And if you're interested in this thing I have expertise in, here's how I did X, Y, and Z to get to points 1, 2, and 3. And once, they put that content out, it tends to build a following. It's a lot more focused in many cases. Yeah. What I'm finding is that those folks have a significantly easier time monetizing their content than the ones that you're traditionally calling the influencer or the content creator that is just trying to get as much people, to look at their content as compared to getting the right people to look at their content.
So interesting. You're the kind of, hi guys, here's what I'm wearing today kind of video you think is sort of running out of steam.
I don't even know that that's running out of steam. I just think that there are different things. I have never watched the shopping haul videos that my daughter would watch.
Have you ever made one?
Well, so here's the thing. What I've come to understand is that if I get a piece of equipment or technology and I talk about it, because I truly am interested in the stuff that I'm interested in, people are also interested in my opinion on stuff. So I'm not saying
that's
that like
from your expertise, isn't it?
That's from my expertise. So I don't want to say that the person that's doing that shopping haul video is doing anything that's like nefarious or anything like that. No, they're creating content that their audience wants. More power to them in that. I'm not necessarily doing that, but like I'll give you an example. I have got my first MacBook. I got a MacBook Neo literally like the Friday after it came out, and people
I want to talk to you about this, but I can't get distracted.
People are just interested in the content. So it's like, hey, what do you think about this?
I fear if I ask you about the MacBook Neo, you're going to cost me like £500. And I'm not prepared to risk that on this show. There's so much I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about actual old school blogging and where that sits in 2026. Do people read stuff? Our newsletter's just blogs now. We said that we kind of think they are. I do, though, really want to give a shout out to a product I really love, which is Clean My Mac from MacPaw. This week's episode is sponsored by Clean My Mac. I'm thrilled they're supporting the show, not least because I've used this product for years. Clean My Mac is your ultimate solution for Mac control and care, notarized by Apple and meticulously crafted by MacPaw, a leading macOS and iOS software development company. Clean My Mac has a sleek, easy-to-use dashboard and features including Cleanup, which clears system cache, development leftovers and broken downloads or duplicate files. There's also the Cloud Cleanup feature, which connects to iCloud, OneDrive, Google Drive or Dropbox, scanning locally and finding large space wasters. Clean My Mac has helped me keep my machines running smoothly as I have had to keep up with deadlines. Get tidy today. Try 7 days free and use my code ADDITION for 20% off at clnmy.com/addition. That's clnmy.com/ADDITION. All uppercase. Thanks to Clean My Mac from MacPaw for supporting the show. So that's Clean My Mac from MacPaw. You're Robb Dunewood, and we're chatting all things kind of content creation in 2026, which I love. I did a piece just recently in my newsletter about kind of the difference between content creators and journalism. And I obviously come to this. I run it independent. You could easily call me a content creator. I make podcasts. I write newsletters. I write blog posts. When I'm organized enough, I make vertical video. So you could easily put me in that content creator category. I can tell you journalists get really offended if you call their work content because we're snobs. It's just kind of where all this stuff fits together, if you see what I mean. So let's start at what I would consider the beginning for me, which is blogging. That idea of I built a website, I'm putting out posts multiple times a week, maybe multiple times a day. And I'm hopefully monetizing it through adverts. Let's start with that, which is the most basic, original kind of content creation blogging model.
Mm-hmm.
Is that dead?
It's not dead. It's different. And the reason it's different is that there's so much competition for content that you have to figure out how to get that content in front of people. And the search engine optimization has been the way that people have done it for literally since the 90s. What is changing now is AI is changing things. So now you have a lot of folks who are not actually going to Google any longer. They're going to Gemini. They're going to, ChatGPT, and they're just asking the questions there.
Or even on Google, they're just reading the AI breakdown at the top.
Reading the AI. So, it's just reading the AI summary. So it really depends on the kind of information that someone is looking for. And I think that dictates a lot of how content is going to be created in the future. So do I believe that blogging itself, do I believe that the website is ever going to go away? No, it's not, because they're necessary in order for all the AI to go scrape the content so that they actually can answer questions about the things. But I do think that it has changed a lot of people's relationship with it. I think that, there are folks, I don't necessarily say that here is a blog that I subscribe to that I go to look for any longer. Almost every one of those blogs has a newsletter, and I just subscribe. And if I want the content, instead of me having to go look for it, if it's something that I'm interested in on a regular basis, just send it to me and it shows up in my inbox and I can just read it whenever I want. It's not because I went and searched for information and showed up on a website. That still does happen. I still do search for things and a website comes up. It just doesn't happen as much even for me as it did in the past. So I think that if it's not happening for me, somebody who literally lives and breathes and sleeps on the internet for a living, that it's probably not happening for the regular person either.
I think there's a lot in there. I've noticed that myself, I've started putting search queries into ChatGPT as opposed to into Google and looking and starting a conversation with that agent. I think
one of the differentiators that I'm seeing is the type of content that you're looking for. If I'm looking for how do I install a sump pump, that is a very ChatGPT-able type of query. Or YouTube. YouTube being one of the second biggest search engine on the planet to Google.
Indeed.
But that is that is something that is built for YouTube or built for a search engine. If I'm looking at, who has the best reviews on this particular laptop, that probably is more, I want to see what PC Mag had to say about it. I want to see what Mac Rumors had to say about it. I want to see what all about Android had to say about it. That's where I look at the more traditional blog or website to go get that information, because I want to look at what people who I trust have written about it. And I may not have been subscribed to their newsletter, so I need to go find that content. But I think that because of that, because of the shift in how people are looking for things, I think that has actually decreased the amount of people who are looking for content on actual websites, because a lot of times you just want to know how to do something. You didn't necessarily need to know this website said do it this way or this website said do it that way. I want the algorithm, what is the average of the way all the websites said to do it. And that's probably the best way to go about it in a lot of cases.
Yeah. You want to settle an argument with your friend in the bar. You don't need to read a whole website on it. You just want the AI breakdown from Google that tells you the right answer.
I just want a non-hallucinated answer.
Yeah. It's interesting. And obviously it kind of depresses me as someone who loves blogging and building up websites. I think, and I put this as a query to you, and we've probably discussed it before, that in an increasingly AI world, people want a real human personality. They listen to the Tech John and DTNS because they like you, Robb Dunewood. They like your voice. They like your insights. They like the way you deliver stuff. They read your newsletter for the same reasons. They don't want an AI Robb Dunewood.
They not at all. I would say that many of my listeners are almost anti-AI in that way, that I do not want any AI generated content.
So just based on what we've just discussed, I would put it to you that actually there may be a chance. I mean, I worry that people don't read enough, but that's a different conversation. I think there is a thing where they know that you have a website when you put your thoughts on something periodically every day, and people want to go to that because they like your voice in the same way they want to listen to you because they like your voice. I think that is a world blogging in 2026 can operate. Am I just delusional and naive and too optimistic?
No, in fact, I think the opposite. I think that there are people who truly like written word. They want to read the words more so than listen to somebody spew them out or watch somebody act them out. So because of that, I think that there absolutely is a space. There will always be a space for written word. It's not going to go away. Newspaper, reading has declined because of other things, but they still exist. Newspapers have never gone away. They're still there. Magazines have never gone away. They're still there. And even the pay content behind, these big newspapers and magazines that have now shifted to online content, it's written word for them. I don't think that ever goes away. For me, it is significantly less difficult to fake me than it is to fake something that I've written. If you see me in my face, now this AI is getting so good that eventually you may be able to actually look at an avatar of me and not know that it's not me. But today that's not the case. And I think that for me, it's easier for me to just, cause I like talking. I like the conversation. I don't mind the writing. And in fact, like I say, I write for a living. It's something that I was doing for decades now. But for me personally, I really enjoy the content creation as far as talking into a mic or being filmed in front of a camera.
Let me just drill down in my original point, which is because people are starting to realize what AI slop is and looks like, because people are starting to build connections with real people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a world in which we go back to having the RobbDunewood.com blog and people go to it every day because they want to read your 350-word take on the MacBook Neo because they know it's you? And I mean specifically the written word version, the blog version that's got adverts on it, got affiliate links in it. I think there is a world for that. I don't think it will be like it was. I don't think everyone's going to be like me and have RSS readers installed back on their phone. But is there a world in which those things are meaningful now and can be monetized?
I think so, because people like to consume content in the way they like to consume it. Some folks like to look at long form video all day long. They would much rather go to a YouTube video than read an article about the thing that the YouTube video, acted out for them. Some folks like to listen to stuff. This is my wheelhouse. They like to listen to me talk about the things that I have expertise in or things that I'm interested about, the things that I'm just letting them know about in the world that I may have a little bit more knowledge on than they have. They like to listen to it. But I know that there are people who like to read things. There are people who like yourself who are like, I don't want to have to go to YouTube. I don't want to have to go to listen to a podcast. I just can somebody still write the information out and let me read it? That's the way that I like to consume it. So I do believe that is absolutely, valid types of content. And what I'm finding is that I'm looking at it like this. I'm not really caring how you consume the content from me. Here's how I'm creating it. Whether it be something that I've written, something that I filmed, something that I recorded into a microphone and you listen to, how you consume it, to me, I'm inconsequential. One of the things I will say to folks is that, being a longtime podcaster, because that's what I consider myself to be. I consider myself most a podcaster. I've been doing that longer than anything else and have had the most success with podcasts. Even though I've been podcasting 20 years, I am not what you would call a podcast purist. I could care less whether the content that you deliver to me is an RSS, and I don't get mad if it's not. Is it content that I'm interested in, and is it in a format that I can consume in a way that I enjoy consuming? That's how I look at it. So for me, I am trying to create content that my audience consumes, and however they want to consume it, they can consume it. Every video that I create has a transcript. If you want to read the transcript versus watching the video, have at it. Every podcast that I create has a transcript. If you'd rather read that, go read it. I write content that sometimes only appears in newsletter format. And what I have not done, and I don't know that I would ever do, is try to, let me take this content and build an avatar and have it go read the content for me. What would probably happen is that, I want to turn this into a YouTube video. And then I would just re-record it myself, maybe change the text a little bit, for that. So the basis for everything that I do is writing. I don't fully script every podcast episode unless it's like a news show to where I'm literally delivering, here's what the news is.
And you've got a time limit.
And I've got a time limit where I just need to, here's what happened, and here's my little script that I'll read. But most of my content, this is just how I feel about it, and I'll write that out so I have it in my head, and then I'll just have bullet points of what I want to hit as I go through it. So For
It's
me,
so fascinating.
I'm a content creator. I create content, and I create the content because I like people to consume it. That's what drives me. The format of it is not as big a deal for me. I probably like talking into this mic more than anything else. But if you like to watch it, there'll be a video. If you like to listen to it, there's going to be audio. And if you want to read the email newsletter, or you want to read the transcript of the things I said into a microphone, you can go do that as well.
Okay, so someone's listening to me ask to have this conversation, and they're like, yeah, I remember blogs. They were fun. I want to start one now. What would be your advice?
The first thing is, once again, I go back to content. If you're going to create content, you have to answer these questions. Who are you creating the content for? What is the content going to do for them? Ultimately, what is the person you're creating the content for going to do for them? What do they get out of it? And is it something that's sustainable to you? Are you creating it because I just have thoughts and I want to get them out and I could care less who consumes it? Or are you trying to build an audience for something? I think that if you're going to start a blog,
about someone who wants an audience and wants to monetize it.
Someone who wants an audience and wants to monetize it, and you want to start off with a blog, the very first thing you need to do, in my opinion, is figure out who you are creating the content for and what are they going to get from it. Because it's a selfish thing. If I'm going to read this thing, I want to read it because I want something from it. It could be just purely entertainment value, but I want to be entertained, or I want to learn something, or I want you to have preached or teached or explained or entertained me. I want that. So I think that if you're creating, it's no different if it's a podcast or if it's a YouTube video or if it is a blog. You need to figure out who is your audience, why are you creating it, what is the motivation that you're creating it, and what are they going to get from it if the goal is for you to ultimately monetize the content. Because one of the things that I say to people all the time, and some folks, they take umbrage to this, is that there's only two ways to monetize an audience. You can either sell something to them, or you can sell your audience to someone who wants to sell something to them. That's the only way. There's no other way that you can generate income from content unless you are selling something to someone based on that content. And I'll hear a lot of folks say, well, I don't want to sell. And it's like, okay, well, you don't want to make money. It's like, you ultimately, that's the only way. You have to create something that is of value to someone that they will exchange money for the content that you've created, or they'll exchange money for the audience that you've created because they feel like they can sell something to someone. So those are the two ways. You sell something to someone, or you sell someone to sell something to someone.
I think even if you're blogging and you're being a kind of purist like I'm trying to be, sort of in this conversation at least, I think you still probably in 2026 need a newsletter. Now, I think there's a world in which people are like, oh my God, I don't want to subscribe for another newsletter. If I want to read your website, I'll just go to your website. But I think at most businesses now, most content businesses are going to need a website or a mailing list.
I think so, because I think that the two big ways that people are going to find content is that they subscribe to you on social media, which you don't own that. The algorithm, it drives that. I can tell you that in my 2 decades plus of creating content on the internet, the newsletter, which is probably the least of the things that I do, has been by far the most profitable. And it's not even close. I'm talking about if the newsletter is X, everything else combined is 1X. The newsletter has been the thing that ultimately generates the income for me.
Is that through subscriptions, advertising, or both?
It could be both. For me, and over my career, it has been, here is this phone that I'm talking about. Here is this thing that I'm talking about. So it's affiliate links that are in the content.
I was going to ask you about
I'm talking about a BlackBerry case. I'm talking about a BlackBerry phone. Here's a link where you can go buy this case. So for me in my career, it has been a lot of affiliate. What is starting to happen now is that folks like me, you've been podcasting for how long? 20 years? Like, I didn't even know podcasts existed that long ago. I thought they just came out in like the 2010s or the 20-aughts. Like, no, podcasting started back all the way in 2004, was coined in 2005. I started in 2006. So it's been 20 years. And what's happening is that I am now getting folks, well, hey, how did you set this up? Or how did you get an audience of this size? Or how did you do these things? Or what do you think about this? Going back to the expertise, I have, I think, a level of expertise. This is what I tell people all the time. It's like, I've been podcasting for a long time. I have ultimately, I've created, dozens, probably hundreds of shows if you count the guest episodes that I've been on, thousands of episodes, tens of millions of downloads at this point. And I've done literally everything that could possibly be done wrong. I did a few things right and I took good notes. So what I can help you do from a podcasting standpoint is I can't help you skip steps. I just can tell you, don't step there. There's a pothole. Don't, this road is really, really bumpy. If you were to go down this road, it's a little bit more smooth. Cost you 2 more miles, but you can drive 70 as compared to driving 55. So those are the kind of things to where people say, I value that information from someone who's been doing it as long and a fair level of success that I've had. And I'm able to sell that. And that's where most of my income comes from these days, is literally just having conversations with people about how do they do some of the things that they're wanting to do, the consulting. And I've been doing small business consulting darn near as long as I've been doing content creation. But that is by far the most lucrative thing that I do. And the newsletter is what drives that. You will never hear me try to sell somebody podcast coaching in a podcast, unless the podcast is specifically for that. You will never hear me on Threads or whatever other social media. Hey, you need to go check my coaching program out. You might listen long enough or watch long enough or read long enough to figure out that that's what I do, but that's not the area for it. It's like, I'm creating content to have conversations with people because I like to have conversations with people. If you come find me, you'll find, oh, Rob's got a newsletter over here. Oh, what's in that newsletter? Oh, he's talking about this. Oh, there's a video link there. What is he saying in that video? You know what? I think I would like to learn how to do that. And that's ultimately how it worked for me. I tell people all the time, I don't convince a single person to ever do anything with me financially because I don't have to. I've got a catalog of over 20 years.
Who wouldn't want to spend time and money with you, Robb?
I'm finding that people who are interested in podcasting specifically are the ones who want to pick my brain, so to speak. And literally one of the reasons for creating some of the podcasts that I have are because I was getting so many pick my brain type conversations that I could not do all my other work. So it's like, instead of me answering all these questions individually for everyone, let me put it into content into a podcast, put it on a membership site. And hey, if you want to hear what I've got to say about this, here's how you go and you access it. No. And like I said, I never try to if you need me to convince you to sell you something, then I haven't done my job with the content. I will never try to convince anyone.
So, I mean, I could talk to you, and I have talked to you about this kind of stuff for hours. I love having these conversations with you. But we do need to wrap up the show. So my final question to you really, and we haven't even talked about Substack, which I'm okay about because I just think it's another platform which underlines a lot of the stuff you've said. But what I do want to ask you is, if we're having this conversation, say, I mean, it won't be this long, sorry, you don't get to escape me. But if we're having this conversation in 2030, what on earth is this landscape going to look like? Or is that too far to predict? If we have this conversation next year even?
No, I think the conversation is going to go. It's like, like I've been podcasting, I've been creating content for a long time. These conversations come up yearly. It's like a regular thing. Well, another conversation, should you put ads on your stuff? Should you not put ads on your stuff? Should you put your stuff behind a paywall? That's not new conversation. It's just new conversation to people who haven't heard it before. We were talking about paywalls back in, 2011, 2013. Should you put your content behind the paywall? Should you put ads on it? So these conversations are cyclical. And for me, it is just content. I like to create content that I hope people will consume. And ultimately, when they do that, I will generate income from it. And like I said, right now, I think I'm doing all right with it. It's like, I sit in my basement, which I've turned into a studio with a couple of different sets with a bunch of lights and a bunch of cameras. And I just talk about what I like to talk about. And I'm able to send my kids to college.
Nice. And we all enjoy that content. Remind people all the different places they can get it and get more Robb Dunewood.
I spend an enormous amount of my day over at Daily Tech News Show. So there's a bunch of different shows over there under that banner. But if you just do a search for Daily Tech News Show, you're going to find me. You're going to find some of my compadres that are doing the same thing. But that is a big place of where I create content and what I'm telling people about today.
Wonderful. And the Tech John as well.
Well, definitely the Tech John. That's my baby. I try to give one call to action. So I know the last time I was here, I said the Tech John. Today I'll say Daily Tech News Show.
Well, there'll be links to both of them in the show notes. I'm at Charlotte A. Henry across social media. If you're listening to this, I hope you're already signed up to the newsletter at theedition.net and read the blog over there as well. Also, my latest book, Streaming Wars, is out now. Robb, thank you so much for being on the show once again. I look forward to chatting with you soon, And I'll see all you listeners next week.